The massive Valdorian flagship hung in space like a metal mountain. Its dark hull stretched for miles, covered in weapon ports and armor plating that could stop plasma cannons. Inside the ship's main meeting room, Ambassador Sarah Chun sat quietly, at a table that was too big for her small human frame. The chair made for 7-foot-tall Valdorians made her look like a child. Across from her sat High Commander Vextar, his forearms resting on the table. His skin was gray like stone and covered in scars from many battles. 2 smaller eyes sat above his main pair, all 4 watching Sarah with interest. Behind him stood 6 other Valdorian officers, their military uniforms heavy with medals and honor marks. "Ambassador Chun," Vextar said, his voice deep and rough. "You humans continue to surprise us with your visits. Most species learn their place after the first meeting." Sarah smiled politely and opened her datapad. She had made this trip many times before. Each time, the Valdorians asked for more. Each time, Earth found a way to give them what they wanted without causing trouble. "High Commander, Earth always values our talks with the Great Hegemony," Sarah said. Her voice was calm and friendly. "We hope to continue our good relationship." Vextar leaned back in his chair. The metal creaked under his weight. "Good relationship. Yes, that is what your people always say. Tell me, Ambassador, do you know what we call your species in our language?" "I am afraid I do not, High Commander." "Soft skins. But not because of your weak flesh. We call you this because you bend so easily. Like soft metal that shapes itself to whatever mold we choose." The other Valdorian officers made sounds that might have been laughter. Sarah's smile never changed. "Perhaps we can discuss the new terms you sent to Earth?" Sarah asked, looking at her datapad. Vextar waved one of his 4 hands. An aide stepped forward and placed a crystal tablet on the table. Words appeared in the air above it in glowing letters. "The hegemony requires an increase in your tribute payments," Vextar said. 50% more rare metals, 100% more food supplies, and we need new workers for our mining operations. Sarah read through the floating words carefully. The numbers were very high. Any other species would have refused immediately. Or started a war, but humans had learned to be patient. "These are significant increases, High Commander," Sarah said. "Earth will need time to consider how we can meet these needs." "Time," Vextar repeated. "Always you ask for time. How much time does your weak species need to count numbers? Perhaps 3 months would be reasonable? We must check our production levels and speak with our colonies." Vextar's 4 eyes narrowed. 3 months, always the same answer. "You will have 6 weeks," Sarah made notes on her datapad. She showed no anger or fear. This was normal for their meetings. "There are also new travel restrictions," the High Commander continued. "Human ships are no longer allowed in the Centauri sector. The jump routes through the Volf system are now closed to your people, and all human vessels must carry hegemony tracking devices." Sarah nodded as if this was perfectly reasonable. "We understand the hegemony needs to protect its territory. May I ask if there will be alternative routes for our trade ships? You may use the longer path through the outer rim. It will add 2 months to your travel time and cost you more fuel. But this is not our concern." The other officers smiled at this. They enjoyed watching humans accept bad news with such calm faces. "We appreciate the hegemony allowing us any routes at all," Sarah said. Vextar stood up, his full height making him tower over the seated human. "There is one more requirement. The Hegemony Science Division requires genetic samples from your people. Full DNA profiles from 1 million humans. This data will help us understand your species better." Sarah's pen stopped moving for just a moment. Then she continued writing. "Genetic samples, that is a new request. May I ask what this information will be used for?" "Science," Vextar said with a wave of his hand. "We study all species under our protection. Surely humans are not too proud to contribute to knowledge?" "Of course not, High Commander. Knowledge benefits everyone. I will present this request to Earth's leadership." Vextar walked around the table until he stood behind Sarah's chair. She could feel his breath on her neck, but she did not turn around or show fear. "Tell me, Ambassador," he said quietly. Do your people ever grow tired of bowing? Do they never wish to stand up straight? Sarah turned in her chair to look up at him. Her face was still calm and friendly. The people of Earth believe that cooperation brings more success than conflict. We have seen what happens to species that choose to fight the hegemony. Yes, they die quickly. But you humans choose to die slowly instead. How interesting. Sarah stood up and gathered her datapad. If there is nothing else, High Commander, I should return to Earth with your requirements. Nothing else for now, Vexstar said. But the hegemony's needs are always growing. I am sure we will have more requests soon. Earth will always listen to the hegemony's needs, Sarah said, with a small bow. As Sarah walked toward the door, she heard the Valdorian officers talking among themselves in their own language. She understood every word, though they did not know this. They were making jokes about human weakness. They were planning what to demand next. They spoke about humans like farmers discussing cattle. The door slid shut behind her, and Sarah walked through the long corridors of the Valdorian ship. Alien soldiers watched her pass, their weapons always ready. They saw her as harmless, a small creature that brought them gifts and asked for nothing in return. Sarah's escort, a young Valdorian officer, walked beside her. The High Commander is pleased with your people's cooperation, he said. Many species require harsh lessons before they learn to serve properly. We are grateful for the hegemony's patience with us, Sarah replied. At the docking bay, Sarah's small diplomatic ship waited. It looked tiny next to the Valdorian fighters that surrounded it. The ship was white and clean, with no visible weapons. It carried symbols of peace and friendship on its hull. As Sarah prepared to leave, she sent a coded message to Earth using her ship's communication system. To anyone watching, it looked like a standard diplomatic report. But hidden in the normal words was information that Earth's leaders needed to know. The Valdorians were getting bolder. Their demands were growing larger. They were starting to ask for things that crossed important lines. Sarah knew that Earth's patience was not unlimited. Even though the Valdorians believed it was, her ship pulled away from the massive Valdorian flagship and turned toward the jump point that would take her home. Behind her, the officers were probably already celebrating another successful meeting with the weak, humans who always gave them what they wanted. But Sarah knew something they did not. She knew that Earth's politeness was a choice, not a weakness. She knew that humans had been watching, learning, and preparing for 30 years. And she knew that every species had a breaking point, even one as patient as humanity. The jump to Earth would take 3 days. Sarah used the time to write her full report and prepare for the meetings that would follow. The Valdorians thought they were dealing with sheep, but they had never seen what happened when sheep finally decided they had had enough. Earth would consider the hegemony's new demands very carefully. They always did. But this time, Sarah suspected the answer might be different than what the Valdorians expected. Captain Maria Santos watched through the window of mining station Kepler 7 as 3 Valdorian warships moved closer. Their dark hulls blocked out the stars as they approached. She had been expecting this visit, but that did not make it any easier. "Captain," her communications officer called out. "The lead ship is sending a message. Put it through, Davis." The main screen flickered and showed the face of a Valdorian commander. His gray skin was marked with ritual scars, and his 4 eyes stared at Maria with cold interest. "Human mining station," the alien said. "You are in violation of hegemony space law. This system now belongs to the Valdorian Empire." Maria kept her voice calm. "Commander, this station has operated here for 12 years under the original treaty agreements. We have all the proper permits." The Valdorian made a sound that might have been laughter. "Treaties change, laws change. What matters is that you are here illegally now. You will evacuate immediately. May I ask to see the new territorial documents? We were not informed of any changes to the boundary lines." "You question hegemony authority?" The commander's voice became dangerous. "Not at all, Commander. We simply need to verify the changes so we can report properly to Earth." The screen went dark for several minutes. When it came back on, the commander looked annoyed. "You have 6 hours to remove all personnel and equipment. Any materials you cannot take will become property of the hegemony. Maria nodded politely. We understand. Thank you for the time allowance. After the transmission ended, Maria's crew looked at her with worried faces. The mining station held 3 years of work and millions of credits worth of equipment. Captain, her first officer said, we can't move everything in 6 hours. It would take weeks to properly evacuate this station. I know, Rodriguez, but we follow Earth's guidelines. No armed resistance, full cooperation with hegemony forces. 6 hours later, the human workers loaded onto transport ships with only their personal belongings. The Valdorians took control of the station and everything in it. When Maria's ship left the system, she sent a message to Earth Command. The message was polite and professional. It requested guidance on the new territorial boundaries and asked for clarification on mining rights. 3 weeks later, similar incidents began happening across human space. Valdorian inspectors arrived at human colonies with new rules and requirements. They demanded access to all records, all computer systems, and all research data. They took samples of local food, water, and soil. They questioned colonists about their work, their families, and their loyalty to Earth. On the farming world of New Iowa, Inspector Krellhan walked through the cornfields with colony leader James. Park, the Valdorian's heavy boots crushed the young plants as he moved. Your people grow food very efficiently, Krellhan said. The hegemony has need of such skills. We are happy to continue our trade agreements, James replied. Earth has always been willing to share our agricultural knowledge. Trade? Yes, your species loves that word. But the hegemony thinks bigger. We require 50 of your best farmers to come work on Valdorian worlds. They will teach our people your methods. James stopped walking. Inspector, our farmers have families. Here, their lives are on New Iowa. Perhaps we could send instructional materials instead? Krellhan turned his 4 eyes toward James. Are you refusing a hegemony request? Not refusing, Inspector. Asking if there might be alternatives that would serve everyone's needs. The Valdorian was quiet for a long moment. Then he continued, walking, crushing more plants under his feet. You humans always ask for alternatives. Very well, send us your farming manuals, your seed samples, and detailed soil reports from every field on this world. If this information proves useful, we may not require your farmers to relocate. Thank you for your consideration, Inspector. That evening, James sent his report to Earth. Like all the other colony leaders, he described the Valdorian demands and Earth's response. The pattern was always the same. The aliens asked for something difficult or unreasonable. Humans offered alternatives. The aliens accepted the alternatives, but always asked for more the next time. In the Outer Rim trade routes. Merchant Captain Lisa Wong was having her own problems with Valdorian attention, but her troubles came from pirates, not officials. Captain, her navigator shouted, 3 ships dropping out of hyperspace. They're not broadcasting any identification codes. Lisa looked at her sensor display. The ships were small and fast, designed for hit-and-run attacks. They had no official markings, but their weapon signatures matched Valdorian military designs. Hail them, Lisa ordered. The response came quickly. Merchant vessel, you are carrying valuable cargo through dangerous space. We offer protection. Services for a reasonable fee. Lisa knew what this meant. These were pirates demanding tribute money. If she refused, they would attack her ship and take everything anyway. What kind of protection fee are we talking about? She asked. 50% of your cargo value. A small price for safe passage. Lisa's cargo hold contained medical supplies for 3 different human colonies. The supplies were desperately needed, but 50% would make the delivery unprofitable. That seems high, Lisa said. Could we negotiate a lower rate? 40%, final offer, Lisa agreed. She had no choice. Her ship had light defensive weapons, but nothing that could fight 3 military-grade raiders. The pirates took their payment and disappeared back into hyperspace. This scene played out dozens of times. Across human shipping lanes, pirates attacked human merchants with increasing boldness. They always demanded tribute instead of simply stealing everything, which made them seem almost reasonable. But the attacks were becoming more frequent and more expensive. Back on Earth, Director Helen Chang sat in her office reading reports from across human space. Mining stations seized, farmers pressured to relocate, merchants robbed by pirates, trade routes closed, new taxes and fees imposed by hegemony officials. Her assistant brought in another stack of diplomatic messages. More complaints from the colonies, Director. They want to know when Earth will take stronger action. Helen looked through the reports. Each one showed the same pattern. Valdorians pushed boundaries. Humans responded politely. Valdorians pushed further. What's our response status? Helen asked. Same as always. Ambassador Chun is preparing another diplomatic note. We're requesting a meeting with High Commander Vexstar to discuss these territorial and trade issues. Helen nodded. And our colonies? Following. Standard protocol, no armed resistance. Full cooperation with hegemony forces. Some are asking for permission to organize local defense forces. Denied, Helen said quickly. We maintain our peaceful approach. That evening, Helen attended a meeting of Earth's Colonial Council. Representatives from 50 human worlds participated by video link. Their faces showed frustration and worry. Director Chang, said the representative from New Tokyo, my people are asking questions I cannot answer. They want to know why Earth continues to accept these provocations. The Valdorian hegemony controls most of this galaxy, Helen replied. Direct confrontation would result in the destruction of all human colonies. Our diplomatic approach has kept our people safe for 30 years. Safe but not free, said another. The representative, how long do we continue bending our knees? As long as necessary, Helen said firmly. Human survival is more important than human pride. After the meeting ended, Helen walked to her private office and locked the door. She activated a secure communication channel that very few people knew about. This is Director Chung. I need to speak with Admiral Morrison. The screen showed the face of a woman in military uniform. Behind her, Helen could see the bridge of a warship, though no identifying marks were visible. Helen, Admiral Morrison said, I've been reading the reports. The Valdorians are getting bolder. Too bold. They're starting to test boundaries. We cannot allow them to cross. Are we moving to the next phase? Helen was quiet for a long moment. For 30 years, Earth had played the role of the weak, cooperative species. But behind that mask, humanity had been preparing for a different kind of future. Not yet, Helen said finally. But have our people ready? I think the Valdorians are going to push too far very soon. How far is too far? Helen looked out her window at the lights of Earth cities. Millions of humans lived their lives believing their government was weak and submissive. They did not know about the secret shipyards in the asteroid belt. They did not know about the weapons research stations hidden throughout human space. They did not know that Earth's apparent weakness was the greatest military deception in galactic history. When they threaten our children, Helen said, that's when we stop being polite. Dr. Marcus Webb sat in his small office on Luna Base, surrounded by walls covered in charts, graphs, and data screens. Empty coffee cups and food containers covered his desk. He had not left this room for 3 days, and his eyes burned from staring at numbers for so long. Marcus was a xenosociologist, which meant he studied how different alien species behaved and interacted. For the past 6 months, Earth Command had asked him to analyze every contact between humans and the Valdorian hegemony. What he found made his hands shake as he typed his final report. Computer, display timeline analysis for Valdorian human. Interactions, years 2387 to 2417. Marcus said, The wall screen showed a complex chart with hundreds of data points. Each point represented a meeting, a demand, a payment, or an incident between the two species. Marcus had spent weeks organizing this information, and now he could see the pattern clearly. Computer, highlight all Valdorian territorial demands and cross-reference with human colony expansion plans. New lines appeared on the chart. Marcus leaned forward and studied them carefully. Every single system the Valdorians had claimed from humans was a system that Earth had never planned to fully colonize. The mining stations, research outposts, and temporary settlements they lost were all in locations that human expansion plans marked as low priority or temporary use only. Interesting, Marcus whispered. Computer, now show Valdorian tribute demands versus actual human industrial output. More data filled the screen. Marcus traced the lines with his finger. The tribute payments the Valdorians demanded were always exactly at the level of what human factories produced as surplus. Never more than humans could afford to pay, never less than what would seem like a real sacrifice. Marcus stood up and walked to another screen. Computer, display genetic sample requests and compare with human DNA diversity database. The results made Marcus sit down hard in his chair. Every human whose genetic information had been sent to the Valdorians was a volunteer from Earth's intelligence services. Their DNA profiles showed the most common and unremarkable human genetic patterns. Nothing rare, nothing unique, nothing that would give the Valdorians real information about human biology. My God, Marcus said quietly, it's all been planned. Marcus spent the next hour reviewing shipping records, colony reports, and diplomatic messages. The more he looked, the clearer the picture became. For 30 years, Earth had not been weak or submissive. They had been playing a game the Valdorians did not even know existed. Marcus opened a new file and began typing his report. His fingers moved quickly across the keyboard as he tried to capture what he had discovered. The Valdorian hegemony believes they have successfully dominated humanity through a program of gradual pressure and increasing demands. However, analysis of all human Valdorian interactions over the past 3 decades reveals a different truth. Humanity has been conducting the most sophisticated intelligence-gathering operation in galactic history. Marcus paused and looked at his data again. He wanted to be absolutely sure before he continued. Every human response to Valdorian demands has been carefully calculated to achieve specific goals. First, to buy time for unknown human preparations. Second, to study Valdorian military capabilities, psychology, and strategic thinking. Third, to position human assets for maximum advantage in a future conflict. Marcus stood up and walked to the window that looked out at Earth, the blue planet. Hung in space like a jewel, peaceful and beautiful. But Marcus now knew that appearances could be very deceiving. He returned to his computer and continued typing. The evidence suggests that Earth's leadership has been preparing for eventual conflict with the hegemony since first contact. The diplomatic approach has not been weakness, but rather a strategic deception designed to lull the Valdorians into overconfidence while humanity builds its true capabilities. Marcus opened another file that contained information he was not supposed to have access to. A friend in Earth's intelligence service had shared some data that painted an even more complete picture. Analysis of restricted documents indicates the existence of significant military assets that the Valdorian hegemony has never detected. These include shipbuilding facilities in remote asteroid fields, weapons research stations disguised as scientific outposts, and a communication network that operates independently of standard galactic channels. Marcus looked at shipping manifests that showed strange patterns. Cargo ships leaving Earth with agricultural supplies that weighed far more than any food products should. Research vessels heading to scientific survey missions in systems that had no apparent scientific value. Transport ships making stops at asteroids that supposedly contained nothing but ice and rock. The human colony evacuation procedures that the Valdorians view as evidence of weakness appear to be actually well-rehearsed military exercises. Human colonists have been trained to quickly abandon their homes and assets in an organized fashion, suggesting preparation for a coordinated withdrawal to defensive positions. Marcus pulled up military academy records from human colonies. Young people who supposedly studied agriculture or mining engineering had also taken courses in tactics, communications, and weapons systems. Every human settlement had residents with military training, even though they worked as farmers, teachers, and shop owners. Most significantly, linguistic analysis of Valdorian communications intercepted during diplomatic meetings shows that human representatives understand the Valdorian language far better than they admit. Ambassador Chun and other diplomats have been gathering intelligence from private conversations they were never supposed to understand. Marcus remembered watching recordings of diplomatic meetings. He had noticed that Ambassador Chun sometimes reacted to things Valdorian officers said in their own language, but so subtly that the aliens never noticed. She would shift her position slightly, or make a small note, or change her next question based on information she was not supposed to have. The pattern suggests that humanity has been aware of Valdorian internal politics, military capabilities, and strategic plans for years. This knowledge has allowed Earth to craft responses that appear cooperative while actually serving human strategic interests. Marcus looked at his personal tablet, which contained messages from friends and family throughout human space. None of them knew what he had discovered. They all believed Earth was weak and afraid of the Valdorians. They worried that humanity would eventually be enslaved or destroyed by the more powerful aliens, but Marcus now understood that the real situation was completely different. Earth had been playing a game of chess while the Valdorians thought they were playing a simple game of strength against weakness. Recommendation: Earth's leadership should be advised that the Valdorian hegemony is likely to escalate their demands beyond the parameters of current human strategic planning. The success of the deception operation may lead the Valdorians to make requests that Earth cannot agree to without revealing their true capabilities or compromising their strategic position. Marcus saved his report and prepared to send it to Earth Command. As he worked, he thought about what would happen when the Valdorians finally pushed too far. They had been testing human patience for years, always finding that humans would bend rather than break. But every species had limits, even one as patient as humanity. His communication system chimed with an incoming message. Marcus opened it and saw that it came from Admiral Morrison, one of the few military leaders he had met during his research. Dr. Webb, your preliminary findings have been reviewed. Report to Earth Command immediately for full briefing. Bring all research materials. Classification level has been upgraded to maximum security. Marcus looked around his office one more time. All his charts and graphs told the same story. Humanity had not been the victim in their relationship with the Valdorian hegemony. They had been the hidden predator, watching and waiting for the right moment to reveal their true nature. As Marcus packed his research materials, he wondered what that moment would be. The Valdorians kept pushing boundaries, kept testing human limits. Eventually, they would ask for something that Earth could not give. When that happened, the galaxy would learn what humans were really capable of. Marcus boarded the transport ship to Earth with his classified report. He had uncovered the truth about humanity's greatest deception. But he also knew that the most dangerous part of the game was yet to come. The Valdorians thought they were dealing with sheep, but they had actually been poking a sleeping dragon. For 30 years, soon Marcus suspected that dragon would wake up. And when it did, the galaxy would never be the same. High Commander Vexstar stood in his command center aboard the flagship Dominator, watching the stars through the massive viewing window. Behind him, his officers worked at their stations, processing reports from across Valdorian space. The hegemony was strong, growing stronger every day, and the humans continued to provide everything they demanded. Commander, his aide Kelvin approached with a data tablet. The Science Division has submitted their request for the Human Integration Program. Vexstar took the tablet and read through the proposal. His four eyes widened slightly as he understood. What the scientists wanted, they want human children, he said. Yes, Commander. The Science Division believes that young humans can be trained more effectively than adults. They request that Earth provide 100,000 human children between the ages of 5 and 15 for integration into hegemony youth programs. Vexstar walked to his command chair and sat down. This was a much larger request than anything they had asked for before, but the humans had always found ways to meet their demands. They were soft and weak, always choosing to cooperate rather than fight. What is the purpose of this integration program? Vexstar asked. Kelvin consulted his notes. The scientists want to study human learning abilities and social behavior. They believe human children can be trained to become useful administrators and technicians for the hegemony. The children would be educated in Valdorian schools and taught proper loyalty to the Empire. And they would never return to their families? The program is permanent, Commander. The children would become citizens of the hegemony with all the benefits that provides. Vexstar smiled. This was perfect. Taking human children would show the galaxy that the hegemony owned humanity completely. Other species would see that humans could not even protect their own young, and would surrender more quickly when the Valdorians came for them. Send the request through normal diplomatic channels, Vexstar ordered. Make sure Ambassador Chun understands this is not optional. The hegemony requires these children for the benefit of both species. 3 days later, Ambassador Sarah Chun received the message at Earth's diplomatic office on Luna Base. She read through the request twice, her face remaining calm despite the cold fear growing in her chest. The Valdorians wanted human children. They wanted to take them away from their families forever. Sarah immediately opened a secure communication channel to Earth Command. Director Helen Chang appeared on the screen within minutes. Helen, Sarah said quietly, we have a problem. The Valdorians are asking for children. Helen's face went pale as Sarah explained the request. 100,000 children to be taken from their families and raised as Valdorian citizens. The aliens called it an integration program, but Sarah and Helen both knew what it really was. How long do we have? Helen asked. They want an answer within 2 weeks. Vexstar made it clear this is not a request we can negotiate or delay. Helen was quiet for a long moment. Both women understood that this was the line Earth could never cross. Humans might accept territorial losses, tribute payments, and trade restrictions. But no human government could survive giving alien overlords their children. Prepare your standard diplomatic response, Helen said finally. But this time, make it different. This time, the answer is no. Sarah felt her heart racing. Helen, are you sure? If we refuse this request, the Valdorians will know something has changed. They might attack. Let them come, Helen said, and her voice was harder than Sarah had ever heard it. Some things are more important than peace. Back on the Valdorian flagship, High Commander Vexstar waited for the human response. He expected the usual polite message asking for time to consider the request. Perhaps the humans would offer alternatives, like sending educational materials or adult volunteers instead of children. When Sarah's message arrived, Vexstar ordered it displayed on the main screen. The message was much shorter than usual. To High Commander Vexstar and the Valdorian Hegemony. Earth has received your request for human children to participate in your integration program. Our response is no, Ambassador Sarah Chun, representing Earth. Vexstar stared at the message for several seconds. Then he read it again. The word no seemed to burn on the screen. Kelvin, he called to his aide, is this message complete? Yes, Commander, that is the entire transmission. Vexstar stood up slowly. In 30 years of dealing with humans, they had never simply refused a hegemony demand. They always asked for time, offered alternatives, or found ways to partially comply. But this message contained no negotiation, no explanation, no apology. Just no. Send a response, Vexstar ordered. Tell the humans they have misunderstood. This is not a request they can refuse. Give them 24 hours to provide a proper answer. The next day, Sarah's response was even shorter, no. Vexstar called an emergency meeting of his senior officers. They gathered in the war room, a dark chamber lined with weapon displays and battle trophies from conquered species. The humans are behaving strangely, Vexstar announced. For the first time in 3 decades, they have refused our demands. Perhaps they do not understand the consequences, suggested Commander Hextall. We should remind them what happens to species that defy the hegemony. Or perhaps they are finally showing their true nature, said another officer. Weak species sometimes become desperate when pushed too far. Vexstar considered both possibilities. Send a fleet to the nearest human colony, New Tokyo in the Kepler system. Demand that they provide the children we requested. If they refuse, destroy one of their cities as an example. Meanwhile, across human space, something unprecedented was happening. On every human world, emergency broadcasts began playing on all communication channels. The messages were identical and came directly from Earth Command. Attention all human citizens. Effective immediately, Emergency Protocol 7 is in effect. All civilian populations should prepare for possible evacuation. All reserve military personnel report to designated stations. This is not a drill. On New Tokyo, Colony Administrator James Park stood in his office watching the Valdorian fleet approach. 3 massive warships had dropped out of hyperspace and were moving toward the planet. But for the first time in his career, James was not afraid. Behind the Valdorian ships, barely visible against the black of space, other shapes were moving. Human ships, but not the usual civilian transports and small patrol vessels. These were warships, sleek and deadly. Emerging from hiding places throughout the system, James opened a communication channel to the approaching Valdorian fleet. Valdorian vessels, this is Colony Administrator Park of New Tokyo. State your business. The response came from the lead ship's commander. Human Administrator, we come to collect the children your species owes to the hegemony. Prepare 1,000 young humans for transport immediately. James looked out his window at the city below. Families were loading into vehicles, heading for evacuation centers they had practiced reaching but hoped never to use. Children were being taken to safety by parents who finally understood that their government had been preparing for this day for 30 years. Commander, James said, his voice steady and calm. I have a message for you from the people of Earth. Our children are not for sale, not for trade, and not for taking. If you want them, you will have to fight us for them. The Valdorian commander's response crackled with anger. You dare threaten the hegemony? We will burn your cities and take your children from the ashes. You're welcome to try, James replied. But I should warn you. We humans have been waiting a very long time for someone to threaten our children. You've just made the biggest mistake in your species' history. James closed the communication channel and activated the planetary defense systems. Hidden weapon platforms throughout the New Tokyo system began powering up, their energy signatures lighting up Valdorian sensors like stars being born on Earth. Director Helen Chang stood in the war room, deep beneath the surface of the planet. Around her, military officers worked at control stations connected to defense networks throughout human space. Admiral Morrison stood beside her, watching tactical displays that showed human and Valdorian forces across dozens of star systems. Helen, Admiral Morrison said quietly, are you sure about this? Once we start fighting, there's no going back to diplomacy. Helen thought about human children playing in parks, learning in schools, growing up safe in their parents' homes. She thought about 30 years of patience, planning, and careful preparation. She thought about the moment she had always known would come, when humanity would have to choose between submission and war. They want our children, Admiral. That's where we draw the line. Helen activated the communication system that would send her message to every human ship, station, and colony in the galaxy. This is Earth Command to all human forces. The Valdorian hegemony has demanded we surrender our children to their control. Our answer is no, and we will enforce that answer with every weapon at our disposal. 30 years of politeness ends today. Show them what we're really capable of. The battle for New Tokyo lasted exactly 47 minutes, High Commander. Vexstar watched from his flagship as the 3 Valdorian warships approached the human colony. He expected the usual pattern. Humans would panic, beg for mercy, and eventually surrender their children to avoid destruction. It had worked this way with dozens of other species. Instead, space around New Tokyo suddenly filled with human warships. Commander, his tactical officer shouted. I'm reading 37 human vessels emerging from stealth positions. Their energy signatures are ... impossible. Vexstar stared at his sensor display. The human ships were not the small patrol boats and cargo vessels he expected. These were warships, sleek and deadly, with weapon systems that registered higher energy outputs than Valdorian battlecruisers? Where did they come from? Vexstar demanded. Unknown, Commander. They were not there 5 minutes ago. They must have some kind of advanced stealth technology. The lead human ship opened a communication channel. The face that appeared on screen was not Colony Administrator Park, but a woman in military uniform Vexstar had never seen before. Valdorian Fleet, this is Admiral Sarah Morrison of the Earth Defense Force. You have entered human space with hostile intent. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Vexstar laughed. Admiral, humans do not have admirals. You have diplomats and merchants, nothing more. We have whatever we need to protect our people, Morrison replied. You have 10 seconds to begin your retreat. You threaten us with cargo ships painted to look like warships? Vexstar said. Attack formation? Show these humans the price of defying the hegemony. The 3 Valdorian ships moved forward, their weapon ports glowing with charging energy. Vexstar had destroyed entire planets with less firepower. But as his ships opened fire, something impossible happened. The human vessels simply were not there anymore. Report, Vexstar screamed. The human ships have vanished from sensors, Commander. Our weapons hit empty space. Seconds later, the human fleet reappeared behind the Valdorian formation. Their weapons fired in perfect coordination, striking shield generators and weapon systems with surgical precision. The Valdorian flagship shook as explosions rocked its hull. Impossible, Vexstar whispered. How can they move like that? Admiral Morrison's voice came over the communication system. 30 years of watching your tactics, Commander. We know exactly how you fight. The battle was over quickly. The human ships moved like dancers, always appearing where the Valdorians least expected them. Their weapons cut through Valdorian shields as if they were paper. Within minutes, all 3 alien warships were disabled, drifting helplessly in space. Commander Vexstar, Admiral Morrison said as her ship pulled alongside his damaged flagship. Surrender your vessels and your crews will be treated according to galactic law. Vexstar's 4 eyes burned with rage and humiliation. This is impossible. Humans are weak. You have no military technology. You have no warships. We have whatever we choose to have, Morrison replied. The question is whether you're smart enough to surrender before we demonstrate more of our capabilities. Similar scenes played out across human space. Valdorian fleets that had been sent to intimidate human colonies found themselves facing overwhelming military force. The humans fought with precision and efficiency that shocked their enemies. Every Valdorian tactic was countered before it could be implemented. Every weakness in Valdorian ship design was exploited on the hegemony capital world of Valdor Prime. Supreme Leader Torgan received reports of defeat after defeat. His military commanders stood before him with expressions of confusion and fear. How is this possible? Torgan demanded. Our intelligence reports show humans have no significant military capabilities. Supreme Leader, his chief of intelligence, said nervously, it appears our intelligence was wrong. The humans have been hiding their true capabilities for decades. Hiding? How do you hide entire fleets of warships? We do not know, Supreme Leader. But their technology appears to be far more advanced than we believed. As the reports continued to arrive, the scope of human deception became clear. The mining stations the Valdorians had seized were revealed to be elaborate disguises for military observation posts. The tribute payments had been used to fund secret weapons research. The genetic samples had been carefully selected to hide human biological capabilities. For 30 years, humanity had been playing a game while the Valdorians thought they were simply dominating another weak species. But the humans were not finished with their revelations. 3 days after the first battles, every major Valdorian military base received the same message. It came on all frequencies at once, impossible to block or ignore. The message showed the face of a human woman the Valdorians had seen many times before. Ambassador Sarah Chun sat at a simple desk, her hands folded calmly in front of her. Behind her was the flag of Earth, but now it was flanked by the symbols of dozens of human worlds and the Earth Defense Force. People of the Valdorian hegemony, Sarah began, her voice carrying the same polite tone she had used in diplomatic meetings for 30 years. I am Ambassador Sarah Chun, and I speak for all of humanity. For 3 decades we have met your demands with patience and cooperation. We gave you tribute because we hoped for peace. We accepted your territorial claims because we valued stability. We followed your laws because we respected your authority. We were polite because we believed you were civilized. Sarah paused and looked directly at the camera. We were wrong about you, but you were catastrophically wrong about us. The message continued as scenes of human military power played across Valdorian screens. Massive shipyards hidden in asteroid belts where hundreds of warships had been built. In secret, weapons research facilities disguised as agricultural stations. Training centers where human colonists had learned to be soldiers while pretending to be farmers and miners. You mistook our diplomacy for weakness, Sarah said. You mistook our patience for fear. You mistook our politeness for submission. But we were never weak, never afraid, and never yours to command. The images showed Valdorian fleets in full retreat from human space. Ships that had terrorized dozens of species were now fleeing from human warships they could not match or understand. Every species you have conquered came to you with aggression or desperation, Sarah continued. They fought you immediately and lost because they were not prepared, but we came to you with patience and preparation. We studied you, learned from you, and planned for the day when diplomacy would no longer be enough. More images flashed across the screen. Human colonies that had seemed defenseless, revealing hidden weapon systems. Cargo ships transforming into military vessels. Peaceful research stations powering up defensive networks that could destroy entire fleets. That day has come, Sarah said. You have demanded our children, and we have shown you the price of crossing lines that should never be crossed. The scene changed to show High Commander Vexstar and dozens of other Valdorian officers in human detention facilities. They sat behind energy barriers, their expressions showing the shock of beings who had discovered their entire understanding of the galaxy was wrong. Your military leaders are now our prisoners, Sarah announced. Your fleets are destroyed or scattered. Your empire, built on the conquest of weaker species, has met an opponent it cannot defeat. The message was broadcast to every world in Valdorian space, and beyond to the territories of other species who had watched humanity's apparent weakness with a mixture of pity and contempt. But we are not conquerors, Sarah continued. We do not seek to rule others or impose our will on different species. We want only to live in peace and protect our people. Sarah stood up from her desk and walked closer to the camera. This is Earth's warning to any who would test our patience again. For 30 years we chose diplomacy because we believed in peace. We offered respect because we hoped for cooperation. We were patient because we valued life. We were polite because we thought you were civilized. Her voice grew harder, carrying an edge that no one in the galaxy had ever heard from a human before. We were simply polite. Until now. The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. In the space of 3 days, everything the galactic community thought they knew about humanity had been proven wrong. The weak, submissive species that begged for scraps from their betters had revealed themselves to be the most dangerous military power in known space on Earth. Director Helen Chang stood in her office watching news reports from across the galaxy. Species that had mocked human weakness were now requesting defensive alliances. Pirates who had preyed on human merchants were fleeing to the outer rim. The Valdorian hegemony, which had controlled most of the galaxy for centuries, was requesting peace negotiations. Admiral Morrison entered the office carrying a datapad. Helen, she said, we're receiving surrender requests from the remaining Valdorian forces. They want to negotiate terms. Helen looked out at the stars, thinking about 30 years of careful planning and patient preparation. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. Accept their surrender, Helen said, but make sure they understand we were polite once. We chose to be patient. But if anyone threatens our children again, they'll discover that politeness was never our only option, just our preferred one.